So this is a lens review of sorts, I guess, but it's a strange one because I'll do it in two parts. These are, I'll show you lenses that I own, but these are actually lenses that I own that are recommended by the angry photographer, but I owned them before I knew about his recommendations. So either he's a genius and I'm a genius because we picked the same lenses, or he's an idiot because I'm an idiot because we picked the same lenses. So either way. But let me go over the lenses. This one is the Nikon 180 f2.8, 180 millimeter f2.8. And in my opinion, maybe the best portrait lens that is in autofocus for a Nikon camera. It's a bit off the sonar design, and as you can see, there's no rear element here, and there's very few elements in it, and the rendering from it is just beautiful. So this is the 180 f2.8. This is the D version. It's just a phenomenal lens. If you want to get your start in portrait photography, only thing I can say is get yourself one of these and you'll have great portraits. Now, arguably, if you don't have this one, the lens you should have for portraits in Nikon, and again, arguably, some people think is the best portrait lens in the world, and there's a lot of evidence to substantiate that, is the 105 f2 DC. DC standing for defocus control. And this lens makes ugly people beautiful. That's pretty much it. The bokeh on this is incredible. A lot of people complain it's not the sharpest lens in the world, but do you really want to be able to see every single pore on a portrait? No. This lens is actually exceptional for landscapes as well, and this is one of the three lenses that I keep pretty much in the bag. The other lens that I keep in the bag, and this one probably, these two actually are probably the ones that sit on my camera the most, and I'll get to that, but this one is a Tamron 45 f1.8 with vibration control. Now this one replaced my old lens, which I really loved, which was the Sigma f2.8 macro. Now that lens was sharp, it was compact, it was useful, it went down to macro wise f 1:1 ratio, except it was really noisy on the focusing, and I had that lens for about 7 years and I quickly sold it because toward the end of its life, it started sounding like a blender every time it focused. And well, I thought the optics were superb. The mechanics on it were crap, basically. And so I traded in for something that had, in my opinion, superior bokeh. It had vibration. This one has vibration. This camera has vibration control. And so it is good for video. The bokeh is just creamy, smooth, and it's an exceptional lens. Now, it doesn't go down all the way down to, 1:1 like my macro lens, my old Sigma macro lens did, but this one goes down to almost a third, 3:1. And so I think that's good enough for most travel photography. With the old 50 millimeter macro that I had, you really couldn't even get down to 1:1 because on 50 millimeters, the length was so short that you basically were touching your subject just to get down to macro levels. So this one, unfortunately, is 3 times bigger and heavier, but it does render superior images. And so this one is the one that lives on my camera probably most of the time. Now, one thing you'll notice is I usually have some sort of filter or a metal hood on almost all my lenses. And the reason being, it hangs around on my shoulder and it bangs around. And so I just look at, you see so many scuffs on my lens hoods. I don't use a cap. I find caps to be too slow, and for the lens hood, I prefer metal to plastic, and it takes a beating, and worst case scenario, I just throw it out if it gets really bad. And it usually costs me $5 on eBay, and I'll just buy one. And by the way, I buy generic ones because what's the point of buying a name brand filter, or a hood, I mean, because it really doesn't make a difference. They're all made from billet aluminum anyways. The next lens up is actually in my opinion, the sharpest zoom lens that Nikon makes, and why I own it, is the 24 to 85 f3.5 to f4.5. This is the G version. A lot of people have the VR version. This one's a little bit more compact, slightly sharper, but optically about the same for both of them. Go ahead and put on the hood, and it's very, very compact. And if I'm going traveling and I'm taking one lens, this is the lens I'm taking. Now, I bought this used for next to nothing, but if I had to do it over again, I probably would buy the VR version just so I would have a little bit of VR for video as well. The lens is cheap. The build quality is the focus is and the zoom is stacked heavily on the tele end. That being said, though, optically, this is, like I said, probably their Nikon's best zoom that starts with a 24. And so it is the all-around lens. If I had to walk around with one single lens, this is the one I walk around with. And last but not least, the angry photographer recommends either the 24 millimeter because that's the focal length he likes to shoot at. I am used to 28, but optically the 20, the 24, and the 28 are very, very similar in the new 1.8 G series. And as you can see, the paint's all worn off because that's how often I use this lens. Now this lens, coating, exceptional coating, very little flaring, vignetting's not too bad. The focus ring on this is crap. There's little resistance whatsoever, and the vagueness of focus, if you were to manually override, is horrible, and you can get a little play on that. You can get a little bit of play on that. But it focuses, not the fastest focusing, but it's wide angles, so you see that 90 degrees gets you end to end. Fairly close focusing, and it's a beautiful rendering, and it has exceptional micro contrast. Yannick thinks that of the three, the 28, the 24, and the 20, this one has the best micro contrast. I would agree. This lens, I think, is this one, and if I had to pick this one, probably, or the 85 f1.8G. These two would be if I was doing more wedding photography, would be my combo. The 28 fixed and the 85, or in my case, I own the 105. The 105 is much more expensive though. So these are the lenses that I own that the angry photographer recommends, but I already own. In part 2, we'll talk about the lenses that I bought based on his recommendation and what I think about them.